So, welcome to the show officially. It's a real pleasure to have you on board. Let's start things right back at the beginning. Where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Eastern Oregon, kind of all over. People think of Oregon, they think just green and lush and raining all the time. I grew up out in the desert, in kind of the sagebrush and on different farms is kind of my background.
Okay. And what sporting events were going on when you were a kid?
Oh man, when I was a kid, so actually growing up on the farm, like we started doing manual labor, like working for my dad at a very young age, like honestly, as young as I can remember. And I want to say it was my first experience with sports was in third grade. I got to play basketball, and from then on, my brothers and we played every sport every season that we could. Not that we didn't love working on the farm, but it also gave us a chance to interact with our friends and
Mhm.
do something competitive. And so we pretty much played. For me, it was like basketball, football. Those are kind of my two main things I like to play.
Yeah. And your dad, was he, I'm guessing his main job was farming. It wasn't like a side hustle.
So that's now that's his main deal. He when I was growing up, he was also a school teacher.
Um, so
Yeah, along with my mom as well. Yeah.
cool. And what was his mentality like? Did he pass down any lessons? What was it like being his kid?
um, we didn't talk about mentality a lot, but
Mhm.
he definitely lived or still lives a life of like um, just hard work. Yeah, that's probably the best way I can describe it.
Yeah. Is that something you picked up?
Absolutely. Yeah. Learn a lot from my dad at a young age, and just doing a good job with things, taking pride in what you do.
Yeah, that must be something that transfers over to what you do right now.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely feel like, on the farm, it was like, if we're out building a fence, it's like, we're going to make that thing straight. Uh, is
Mhm.
it going to, is it going to make the cows stay in better if it's straighter versus like a little crooked? I don't know, but it was just kind of the way we did stuff. And, so yeah, it's not something that like my dad and I had talked about my mindset or kind of our mental approach, but, definitely just the idea of like, hey, we value hard work, and if we're going to do it, it's worth doing well, are things that were just like kind of ingrained in my family, like at a young age, as long as I can remember.
Yeah. Do you remember any specific examples of times when that was like, oh yeah, like that's dad and mum maybe really like showing that ethos of hard work?
Oh man, I think uh like one of my earliest memories is my mom. She was in college actually getting her teaching degree, and my dad, in order to make that happen, took a job at the local mill, like the sawmill, and he was working at night, so that my mom could go to school during the day. And then there was me and my two brothers. And I remember my dad, he was working the night shift, and I remember him trying to like get some sleep on the couch. And me and my two brothers just being little rascals and jumping on him and like, uh, just like causing trouble, and he wasn't able to rest and stuff like that. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but looking back now, and now that I have kids, I'm like, wow, like the sacrifice they made, and the life that they lived, it would be very challenging, and I just appreciate it more now than I did, when I was 4 years old, jumping on my dad while he's trying to sleep.
Yeah, like it's interesting, right? Because we're very rarely given explicit lessons like, okay, this is how you think about challenge. This is why you got to work hard. We kind of pick up the environment that we work in. And maybe
Yeah,
sorry, that we pick up the environment that we are brought up in. And especially with primary caregivers like parents, it's like, oh, okay, like this is like important. Like this is something that we all do, and this is our normal. Do you apply those, or how do you apply those lessons now? Or is it, I'm guessing it's not even a choice for you, it's just something that you do, right?
yeah, that I think so. And now that I am a parent too, I'm actually like, I have so many questions for my parents. I'm like, how did this happen? Like, I remember, so like another story, just from my childhood, both of my brothers had perfect attendance in school. Um, I did not. I was actually I would work on I'd work on the farm or on other farms to get out of school sometimes. But like we all think we all had like a 4.0 GPA in high school. I don't know if they have that in where you're at, but basically like valedictorians of our classes at our schools. And we always just, when we were even doing our homework and stuff like that, we're always just like making sure it was the best thing possible, like the best thing that we were capable of, because there wasn't really another way to do it. There was never like, oh, I'm just gonna, turn something in last minute halfway. It just was never, that was never an option. And it wasn't something that like our parents forced on us. It was just, like you say, a product of the environment that we grew up in. And I don't know how they created that, or if it happened like, I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be by accident. If maybe that was kind of a product of how they were raised, but it wasn't really something that we talked about.
Yeah, it very rarely is. It's just something that
Yeah.
is going to pass down through action and then mimicking. And that's
Yeah.
generally how like 50% of beliefs are kind of created. And then we have
Okay.
to like work on the other 50%. We have to like, okay, I've run into my own limits. I've kind of encountered my own BS. Now how do I deal with that?
Yeah. Gotcha.
So you mentioned, was it football and basketball?
Right.
Yeah. How did playing those go? Like, what kind of level did you get to?
Um, so I've never been the best of athletes, but I've always been able to, any success that I have had in sports. Um, like I said, same thing in school, just came from working hard at it. Never been like the most naturally talented athlete, never the biggest, never the strongest, never the fastest, that type of thing. But I was super fortunate to be able to play football after high school. I went to college and I got to play football at a Division 3 college in Wisconsin, actually, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Also, had a coach there that was just a huge mentor, and outside of my dad, one of the biggest influences in my life.
Oh, cool. Yeah, tell me about him.
He was he had been coaching college football for a long time. He was the reason that I went out to school in Wisconsin, kind of moved across the country and went out there. And I don't know exactly why, other than when I met with him and I visited with him, I was like, man, I want to play football for this guy. Like I want to be on this guy's team. And it was it was interesting just because that was my mindset for 4 years when I was in college. Is like I will run through a wall. I will die for this coach because he's a person that I have so much love and respect and thankfulness that he gave me the opportunity to do this. And yeah, it's just like obviously same for like my teammates. Like do anything for those guys as well. But yeah, his name is Coach Ed. He retired the last year that I was in college, and I just remember being like, man, I am so thankful that I got to play for him this last year versus him having retired earlier while I was there.
Yeah. Looking back at it now, like it's always interesting to like reflect back on why we made the decisions we made, and kind of like sometimes we figure out, okay, why was I so like enamored with this person? I've certainly got coaches that I'm like, oh wow, I see how open he was and like willing to coach and be vulnerable and to kind of give a really connect and put the effort in with me. There's a few people that I'm aware of like that. Like, what was it? What drew you to him?
I think, yeah, I think it was just the fact that, yeah, he didn't seem to be one of those coaches that was just like, hey, I want to try to get as many people as I can here, and um, we'll see who works out. He felt like he cared about me. When I was, an 18-year-old kid trying to figure out where I was going to go to college, he was, not just interested in the athlete. He was interested in like developing the person. And I just felt like, yeah, man, this guy's the real deal. He's not just some guy up there talking and trying to tell me what I want to hear to make me come to this college. He was, he really never even sold me on trying to go to school there, and maybe that was a big part of it. And yeah, it's man, like you said, it's hard to put your finger on why I made that decision when I did, but it just felt right.
Do you think, like, if you think back to your time working under him or studying under him, however you want to phrase it, like,
Yeah.
what kind of memories come up?
Oh man, just how how much of a privilege and a pleasure it was for me to learn from and play for him. I enjoyed, of course, in football. Football, there's not a lot of actual games. I think you play 10 or 12 games in a season, so you have a lot of time preparing and practicing for those games. And I loved every minute of practice. We got to compete regularly. I mean, every day was like I said, an opportunity to compete, and I love being in that environment. I love the just the challenge of like going to practice daily and trying to get better and contribute to your team. He talked a lot about being his phrase was a happy warrior, like being that person. Yeah. And
yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, super cool. And I wish that I had written down some of the pregame speeches that he would talk about being a happy warrior, but just basically going out there and going to war with your brothers. But at the same time, no matter what happens, just keeping that that positive demeanor that is like, hey, it's not about me. It's about continuing to help this team, no matter what happens, good, bad, or otherwise.
Do you remember any specific interactions with him because you mentioned essentially like being seen and being made to feel special, and like that you really felt heard and witnessed, and like for athletes of all levels, it's so important. Like from people for the first day in the gym to people like Justin, for example, like there's like everyone wants to feel special and heard and like understood. So like, do you remember any times where he was like, where he was speaking to you, or any interactions you had with him where it's like, oh, he gets me?
Yeah, like honestly, the very first kind of like inter squad scrimmage that we did, I was a freshman, wasn't expecting to get a lot of playing time or be a starter or anything like that. But we were doing our scrimmage within our team, and I made a bonehead play. Like I hit this guy early, and every official in the field threw a yellow flag in the air, so it's an obvious penalty. And he came up and he grabbed my face mask and he's like, "Neiffer, what are you doing out there? What are you thinking?" And I was like, "Coach, my bad. I thought I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember what he said. He's like, well, that's your own teammate. Don't hit him early like that, but I like your aggressiveness." And so clearly I had made a major mistake and caused a penalty that would, if it were in a game, would be detrimental to the team. But he's like, hey, think about it, but don't change the way that you're approaching things in terms of being in attack mode and being aggressive. And so even though it was a mistake that I made, he turned it into like, yeah, there's a learning experience here, but don't let that mistake influence the aggressiveness or the attack that you're in, and hold on to that. So he turned something that was a mistake into like a positive learning experience for me. And I remember that. And I've talked to him about it later. He was like, at that point, that was a turning point in you kind of moving up into a more prominent role or more significant role on the team.
Yeah, that's such a cool coaching moment, because it's like you hear of coaches the whole time. It's like, that's crap, don't do that again. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's useful. I'll just try and avoid this. And it becomes like, it gets in your head and it's like, okay, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And we kind of,
or you're afraid to mess up, right?
Yeah,
then
exactly.
You become afraid to make mistakes. And he was like, he created an environment where it's like, no, mistakes happen and they're not a bad thing. They're an opportunity to learn.
Nice. And that must be something that you use the whole time, or something that is a constant reminder whenever you're coaching at whatever level.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that, just like trying to find, when things happen that maybe our human nature is like, oh, this is not the outcome I was looking for. It's like, okay, well, what can you learn from it? There's so many opportunities like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is what coaching is. It's like just finding the opportunities to grow. That's really a key element of it. Did I read somewhere that you were a firefighter at some point?
Yeah. That's what I did prior to coaching CrossFit.
Yeah. How did you get into that? Like, what was the point you decided to start?
So I guess when I was, even prior to going to college, or right around when I started college, I started, logging as well, like working in the woods, with a chainsaw, just again, manual labor. And, in the Northwest, logging and firefighting are kind of go hand in hand now, just in the sense that like logging is um, basically a method of forest management. And people think of logging as just out there cutting down all the trees in the forest, but my experience working in logging was thinning the trees and creating a healthier environment for the forest. And so that's how I started. And then while I was in college, I started fighting fire on a just an engine for the Forest Service here. And then after college, started doing that professionally full time.
Yeah. So I've never been in like fire department or anything like that, and I don't know how the hierarchy works. But like, what was it like in that team?
Oh man, so again, I kind of like how I described when I had the opportunity to play college football, like just being a part of a team that I was on. It's called a hot shot crew, and basically you have 20 people on your crew. There's a very organized structure to the management, from the superintendent to kind of two foremen, crew foremen, and then you have like squad bosses, and then you have senior firefighters, and then you have kind of the ground pounders. And my job was literally to I had a chainsaw in my hands for a couple of years, and that's what I did, is cut. Yeah, so basically cut trees, cut brush, whatever needed to happen in that in that environment. And really each person on the crew has a very specific task within the crew to help help the crew perform whatever the job or the objective is for that day. It's very mission oriented.
Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of responsibility in each role, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. In my role, it was mostly like I say, like grunt work. I wasn't really in charge of a whole lot of decision making at the time, but I knew my role super well, and I was like I said, I really enjoyed the opportunity to do it.
And then where did CrossFit come into this?
So CrossFit came in. It was right about the end of 2005. I'd finished up my last year of playing football in college, and at the time, I actually did not like working out. Really didn't enjoy it. I went to the gym every day in college for 4 years because I knew it would make me better at my sport and knew it would make me a better football player. But I never went there thinking like, oh man, I can't wait to go work out, right? I went there looking at it almost more as a job or a chore. It wasn't something that I looked forward to. It wasn't something that I really was passionate about or enjoyed. And then when I got done playing football, I was like, shoot, this is not something that I need to do on my schedule anymore. I'm not like, I would never miss a day of training, because if I did, I felt like I would be letting down my teammates or my coach or myself. So I always hit those football training workouts. Then after that, I didn't really know what to do. I was kind of lost. I went down to the weight room and I was like, well, I'm not training for football. I don't know what to do anymore. And my brother at the time, Jake, he was like, hey, I found this thing called CrossFit. You should check it out. And he literally had found it on the internet. He wasn't going to a gym, or he didn't know anybody else doing it. And so he and I just started following the main page, CrossFit.com. And it was actually, this is a long story, but it was my roommate in college. His name's Colin McLean. And we did our first CrossFit workout together in 2005. And then he actually came out and fought fire. We fought fire together for years and did CrossFit together there. And now, it's been literally 20 years since we were first roommates in college. He and I work together every day. So he's head coach at our gym. And nice. In a lot of ways, like we were college roommates, we were teammates, we fought fire together. And now, like I said, I work for him at our gym.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. 2005. That's pretty much the start. Like you go a long way back within CrossFit then. Standard CrossFit question. What was your first workout? Do you remember it?
Yeah, Angie. Yeah, it's 100 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. And I think, it's in that order. Yeah. And so, and actually that's part of what drew me to CrossFit, is I had been doing these football workouts for years and training in some pretty standard kind of old school strength conditioning style, and thought I was in decent shape, thought I was a decent athlete, and did this workout, Angie, and was super humbled. And for some reason, that experience was like, wow, like that was cool. I'm really bad at this. And like, instead of being like, oh, I don't want to do that ever again, I was like drawn toward, when you see something that you don't want to look at, but you keep looking at it, or like, I don't know. It was just one of those things where I was like, dang, that really surprised me. It humbled me. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that more.
It's quite interesting when you have this identity of like, oh, this is who I think I am, like a fit person. And then something
Yeah.
like CrossFit comes in and smashes you from the side. Like, oh, okay. Like,
Smashes you.
yeah, complete ego like drop.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I remember that workout. And it took I mean, it was close to an hour for both of us. We were just like uh in the pain cave and like huddled around a garbage can because we thought we were gonna do it in like 5-10 minutes or something. But from there, we had a little bit of college left. We did some CrossFit there. Actually, also had a coach on my football team there that was like, "Hey, you should come out for track." And I was like, "Coach, I've never done track in my life." And he was like, "Yeah, come on out. I want you to try high jumping and sprinting." Because my senior season of football was over and track was in the spring. So I did that, learned a ton, and was doing CrossFit at the same time. And then when we went to fight fire, um, it took a while, but when we implemented CrossFit into the crew, more and more of us started doing it, and it was amazing. Like we got better at our jobs physically, and it's already a super physical job. I mean, you're working. Typical days are like 16 hours of just um, yeah, hard work, hiking, hot weather, uncomfortable conditions, and you're covering steep terrain and carrying heavy packs all day every day. Most days are 16-hour days, and you typically work like 14 days in a row, and then you have 2 days off, and then you're back on for 14. And man, when we started doing CrossFit, not only were we better at our jobs physically, but yeah, like we had more fun doing it. Our camaraderie as a team went up. We had this like sense of like nobody's gonna outwork us when we get out to the fire line. Like we're gonna be the crew that other crews are like, man, how are they still going? How are they doing that? And I truly believe CrossFit was a huge part of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of what I'm trying to do is figure out how you got to this point where essentially you demonstrate like this belief system of like hard work, of integrity, of discipline, and it's like all the pieces are coming together now. It's like, okay, firefighting, like paternal influence, definitely like your dad's influence on you, and probably your mom too, like Coach Ed, like all these things
For
like
sure.
building into like, oh, okay, this is how you became you. And like like not perfectionism, but the focus on quality and being effective. And it's really interesting to see. So how did this all build to becoming a coach?
So yeah, when we were fighting fire, got to kind of implement CrossFit with the crew, and that was, like I said, one of the most enjoyable parts of my job was getting to see myself and my teammates around me improve, physically and mentally, and as a team through CrossFit. And then I started coaching CrossFit part time in the off season. So fire season in the West here is like, kind of our season would be like May through November, and then we'd get laid off for the off season. And during that time, I had an opportunity to go in and actually go into a CrossFit gym called CrossFit Portland. And there's a couple there named Scott and Rochelle Hagness. And at first, I was just going in there to train a little bit in the off season, and then I got my level one, and they gave me the opportunity to contribute to that community through coaching. And that's when I really saw like, wow, like yeah, implementing CrossFit for the firefighting crew that I was on was remarkable, but the impact, the positive impact that this thing can make on everyday people is literally life changing. And so that's where I kind of fell in love with the coaching side of CrossFit.
Yeah. When did you get your level one? What year was it?
Ooh, I think it was at the beginning of '08.
Yeah.
Yeah, right around there.
Sweet.
Somewhere in '08.
Yeah. Like what was that first, like obviously level one seminars changed a lot in that time. There's still the same fundamentals, but like what was that like? What was it like going to that level one?
Uh, Again, very humbling. I mean, I'd been doing CrossFit for long enough at that time that I thought I knew, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I thought I was doing some stuff pretty well. And then you go to something like level one, and you're like, you're like, nope, I've been doing CrossFit, but I can do it so much better, right? There's so much to learn. And I remember like a super humbling experience. I don't know exactly how to do level one now, but at that time we always did Fran as one of the workouts on day one. And I remember just being like so fired up to like smash everything and just like go really fast in doing Fran. And I like cleaned. it's so funny looking back because there was like a couple of the level one coaches that were standing around watching us and or coaching, I should say. And I remember cleaning the 95-pound barbell for the very first thruster on Fran. And I like, I was excited. And I just like lost my balance and literally fell over backwards with the bar. And that was the start to, my very first rep in Fran at the CrossFit level one. And it's like, well, hey, that happened. Check your ego and get back to work, right?
That's a good start.
Yeah, great start.
Yeah.
Exactly how I pictured it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when did CrossFit Fort Vancouver come about, and how did you transition into that role?
Yeah, that was so we actually opened our affiliate in 2009, like in March of 2009, I think is when we officially opened our doors. And yeah, it was the type of thing where I was living here in Vancouver, Washington. I was coaching at CrossFit Portland. There were no gyms here in Vancouver, and with the staff, the owners at CrossFit Portland, they were all about also having a location in Vancouver. We had considered doing just another branch of the same gym, and that didn't really work out with the organization structure from CrossFit HQ at the time. So decided to, in the kind of the bottom of the recession in 2009, we're like, oh, let's open a gym. We'll see what happens. And at that time, it was definitely a leap of faith. I loved fighting fire. My superintendent from the hotshot crew was super supportive, and he was like, hey, this is something you should do. If for some reason things don't work out, like you'll always have the opportunity to come back and work in the job, a similar role that you had. And so he was definitely supportive of it, encouraged me to give it a shot. And at the time, it was like I didn't have any experience in business, so it was literally like, hey, I want to help people. I think CrossFit is a great way to do that. Let's find a warehouse in Vancouver, sign a lease, and let's see what happens, basically. And that was 12 years ago. We're still up and kicking, so it's pretty cool.
What were those first few days like? That to fill you in, my story with opening an affiliate was kind of similar in as much as I was in the military at the time and as a reservist, so I was kind of like half in, half out, and like kind of go away for a few weeks or go away for a weekend or whatever. And then I was trying to establish a gym, and I had zero like business credentials whatsoever, and I just kind of assumed that I'll start a box, people will flood to me, and then I'll have the best, and I'll be able to train for like 10 hours a day. And that was the goal. And then because of my zero business acumen and a kind of a few strokes of luck that went against me, like I lost everything. So like that possibility is real. And it's like I'm guessing I'm not the first person you've heard say a version of that story. So like, what was the first few days, few weeks, few months like?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like you described it. You're like, okay, we're gonna build this thing and they'll come, right? Like it's gonna be easy or whatever. And at the time, you don't know what you don't know. But the first day, I can think about that. We didn't have much equipment, and it's funny thinking back about opening a CrossFit affiliate now. People know or have an expectation of what CrossFit is. Back then, nobody had heard of it. Nobody, or very few people, I should say, knew what they were getting into. So we had basically an empty warehouse, cement floor. There's no rubber mats on the floor. We had welded up our own pull-up rig. So everything was kind of homemade. We had most of the equipment that we did have, which was very little, came from like Craigslist or stuff that I had just had around, when I was training in the summers from college, just, old barbell, maybe some metal weights. And really, we didn't have enough to do much. So I remember the first few workouts, and we followed CrossFit.com there at the beginning, was like, okay, if there's a barbell movement, we'll do it with dumbbells. And so the very first day, it was like the workout was DT, which is a hero workout. And it was just me and at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, but it was just the two of us on the first day. And, we wrote the workout up on the whiteboard and we did the workout, and that was it.
First day of
Um,
business, tick.
yeah, there was like, nobody was there. Nobody else was there. And we started doing kind of, I don't remember what we called it at the beginning, but an onboarding program. And when we announced that happening, and I don't even remember how we got the word out. There was no real marketing, but I think three out of our first four were military, like yourself, right? And many of our first members were either had a firefighting background, or maybe police officer or some sort of public service where fitness was a requirement for their job.
Yeah. And it's almost like that it kind of self-selects, or CrossFit self-selects for those people who, in a similar way, do Angie and get smashed by it and then go, you know what, I want more of that. Like that was fun. Give me a bit more of that. There's something about it. It's fascinating to see.
It is. And I sometimes wonder about that, because now, I think about, 12 years later and how much we've learned. And, you know, we don't have people do Angie on their first day in the CrossFit gym, right? That's just, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the same time, it's like, well, that's something that's how I got into it, and it worked out, So sometimes I wonder about, like, oh, maybe somebody's first exposure to CrossFit should be more more rugged.
Yeah, I know what you mean. My first one was Fran, and with those kind of, do you remember those barbells you had to put a pin through the middle so they wouldn't break? You kind of slid two pieces together.
Oh yeah,
those with some like crappy metal weights. And I remember trying to do thrusters, and like, I'm so glad I can't see. I think I did like 30 kilos, so what's that, 75 pounds or something? Because I just couldn't get the front rack and the squat and like strict pull-ups. I was like, I'm gonna do this strict and just proper military style, down, up.
Yeah.
And then like being sick on the floor outside, like I can remember the frost and the hat, like on the grass, like against my hands and face. It's like, it's an intense start, but from that moment I was like, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. I can relate to, like, doing Angie. Like, we never heard of a kipping pull-up, so you're just trying to do as many as you can, as strict as you can. Yeah. And over the course of some years, you learn some different technique. But I definitely appreciate the background that I had in CrossFit, kind of learning it from that, like you said, just kind of very rudimentary. You figure it out. Like, nobody necessarily showed us how to do everything. Obviously, there's lots of coaching opportunities along the way since then, but at the beginning it was just very raw, very pure. Like, oh, this is a hard workout. I feel like there's some room to grow here. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a fascinating community, and I think like you must have brought about that culture as well. You said the fellow coach, is he your co-owner as well? From the fire team.
Head coach at the gym.
Oh, yeah. Head coach. Okay, so he's obviously got part of that culture too. What's the culture at Fort Vancouver? Like, I've been impressed with one of our athletes, who's also one of your athletes. She's got this kind of growth mindset that's very aware and comfortable with negative feedback, and like she's very open to it. So it's cool to see. But I'm guessing this is something that you've either is important for you, or something that you've tried to create and put forwards.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to like, I don't know. It's hard to explain the culture of what our affiliate is like. I think probably other people would do a better job of that than me. But we have been very intentional about the values that are important to us, and the kind of athletes that we want to create. And it turns out it's not nearly as much about performance as is about growing as people, and really just becoming a family of people that are invested in one another's success.
That's lovely. Like, it's really cool to hear that. It's such a community element. Is this something that you've had trouble with creating, or is it something that I think you've demonstrated yourself maybe?
I wouldn't say something we had trouble creating, but I would say, early on in CrossFit Fort Vancouver's existence, it wasn't something that was as intentional as it is now, if that makes sense. So now, we talk about our values of being humble, hungry, and awesome, and what those mean to our community. And it's something that we actually like discuss or have a conversation about, like within the first couple weeks of somebody being a member of our gym. Early on, we didn't have those conversations. It just kind of happened. But it was, like I said, less intentional than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it can be a difficult thing to communicate to people, but the way you've done it, and I remember seeing it on a photo of yours, actually. It's in the background, humble, hungry,
Yeah,
and awesome. What does that mean to you? Like, why those three?
man, that's a great question. It's something that we spent, months and months as a team trying to decide how we wanted to quantify or just sum up who we are into this culture. And so you kind of start with what are your values, who are you, what's your mission, what do you actually, why are you doing what you're doing? And so what we kind of summed it up to is creating a family of humble, hungry, awesome people that love others and live healthy lives to the fullest. And each one of those pieces, behind the scenes, we can pull out and talk for hours about what those things mean. But humble, hungry, and awesome are basically the three words that we felt like best sum up who we are and what we want to strive to be. So humble, really being others before self. And being hungry is like constantly having that growth mindset for improvement. And then being awesome is just being the type of person that other people want to be around. It's pretty simple, but it's something that we've really embraced as a coaching team at our affiliate, and hopefully use literally daily to help guide our decisions and how we operate.
Yeah, you've got a really clear, clean vision of not only what you want to achieve, but who you need to be to get there. And I think like
Right.
that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It's really cool. So I'm going to have to skip through a few questions because otherwise I'm going to completely run out, or outrun out of time. But Sean,
No worries, man.
I was speaking to Sean Woodland from Talking Elite Fitness, and he said about you, like we're talking about coaching and knowing your own limits, and he said you're the first person to ask for outside help when you need it. Can you give, or when have you done this? When you're looking for people to come in and maybe in particular coaching Justin, like when you like finding your own limits, and how have you done this in the past?
Oh man, that's actually, I'm glad you asked about that. It's actually a really easy thing for me, in the sense that, like, okay, my job in coaching Justin is to help Justin be the best CrossFit athlete that he can be. And when we first met, he had like a couple years left of college, and he was like, hey, my dream is to qualify for the CrossFit Games before I graduate from college, because once that happens, I'm I got to move on with my life, go get a job, and get started on whatever happens in life after that. And so I was like, cool, I'm gonna do everything in my ability to help you achieve that goal and become the best CrossFitter that you can be during the time that we have. And the first like, I don't know, year and a half, something like that, it was like, okay, it's it's all within my scope of, there's lots of room for improvement. Obviously Justin was doing lots of things well already, but there's lots of room for improvement. And let's just focus on chipping away at kind of the low hanging fruit and make progress everywhere we possibly can. But very early on, when he actually got to come and live with us and train in person at our affiliate, it was like, okay, we have a coach that's an Olympic weightlifting coach that his name's Coach Eric, and he's on staff with us. He's from American Samoa and represented his country at the Olympics in Barcelona and Atlanta. So in 1992 and 1996, he literally competed in the Olympics in Olympic weightlifting. And so it's like, hey, pretty much all of Justin's weightlifting sessions, Coach Eric loads the bar for him. He watches every lift. He's there, and he like, for me to not want to, I guess, utilize Coach Eric's expertise to help Justin grow would be just a mistake on my part. So to think I could just do a better job of that than Coach Eric is like, no, that's not the way it is, right? And I love Olympic weightlifting, but it's one of those things where, man, it's a place where Coach Eric can really contribute. And then after he went to the CrossFit Games in 2020, It was like, okay, what is Justin's, he doesn't have any like huge holes anymore, but what is the thing that's holding him back most in his fitness physically? And it's upper body pressing strength. And I'm like, okay, who's the guy that I know that can help move the needle the most in that area? And it's a friend of mine that I've known for a long time named Jesse Bufano, and he's basically, he's a CrossFitter. He's a CrossFit coach, but he's also a super knowledgeable powerlifting coach, and he knows how to get people stronger than anybody else that I've ever met. And so I'm like, I want that guy on our team. So he started helping us out, and it's just like, yeah, if I'm being true to Justin and I'm being honest about like, hey, my job is to help you get as good as you can be, then I want to seek out people that know more about, specific disciplines within our sport than me, right? I'm not an expert in everything. And I'm not going to pretend to try to be that. So there are people that I think have so much value to our team, and having their involvement is just such a powerful tool. And then it changes my job a little bit. And now, I'm coaches are a lot of different things in CrossFit. A lot of coaches I think are programmers. Then there are some people that are, like yourself, are coaching mindset. There are people that are coaching kind of the competition strategy or whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's like I'm Justin's overall coach, and I'm going to be the person that fits all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so that's my role.
Yeah, I think what you show there is this, again, it comes down to those three words. Well, one of those three words, humility. Like, you're humble. Like, you're recognizing your limits. And the ego of a coach often wants to go, hey, I know everything. Like, I've made that mistake in the past, and like I've gone, oh, I can cover all these bases, and I know plenty of other athletes have. How do you recognize when you've hit your limit of kind of where and your potential? Because there's this area of growth, right? It's like, if I'm doing something that's challenging for me, that is kind of like on that threshold of whether I'm capable or not, like, then maybe this is where I should be operating. But when I overstep that, then I definitely shouldn't be working there. And it's a blurry line. Like, what are you watching out for? Maybe it's not a conscious process, but like, what do you think about that?
No, that's a great question. That's you hear the phrase "fake it till you make it."
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, pretend until it works out. That doesn't resonate with me as much of like, I think like as coaches, and I don't think this is unique to coaching, say a CrossFit Games athlete. I think this is coaching at every level. Even from when we think back to like the first time that we had an opportunity to coach somebody else in CrossFit or in any other sport, it's really easy to think about like, wow, there's so much I don't know, and that's an intimidating thing. But on the flip side of that, there's also lots of things that you do know. And if you can look at the person that you're working with and be like, okay, I might not have all the answers, I might not have it figured out perfectly, but can I help them? Can I help them move from where they're at now to something that's a little bit better than where they're at now? And regardless of what the discipline is, if you can answer yes to that question, then your coaching has value to that person. And so for me, just looking at Justin on a daily basis, into like, pieces of the season into like a full game season, are there areas that I can see room for improvement in him that I feel like I can help him move the needle on? Absolutely. Are there areas where like me seeking out some additional help from some other people that are experts in their own field, is there opportunity to include them in that process? 100%. And so that's where I kind of just try to assess, where is Justin at as an athlete, as a person? How can I help him? And where can I benefit from other people being a part of that team? And I've, one of the themes, even in this conversation, is like team sports and team endeavors have been a staple in my life for as long as I can remember. And I enjoy the process of like accomplishing something with other people. And so to include other people on the team that can elevate my coaching and that I can learn from and that can help Justin, it's like a win-win-win. It's mutually beneficial to all parties involved.
Yeah, I'd say it's almost like your experience in the fire department. Like, you've got a very like when I asked you, I actually didn't even ask you about what your objective was. I was going to, like, what's your objective with the coaching Justin? But you had it there. It's like to make him into the best athletes possible. And you had that in such a top of your mind awareness that it's a great filter for your available options, because it immediately, like, if your objective was to create the biggest Instagram following possible, maybe you would do everything, but it wouldn't be best for Justin, like, and or for your athletes at Fort Vancouver, like, or maybe if it was to promote a book or something like that, or to make as much money as possible, maybe it wouldn't be that. Like, but when your objective is to help someone as much as possible, it becomes like this filter for like, okay, these are my options, and I reduce them down to like 1 or 2 as opposed to 10 straight away. So you've got that very clear vision. And it's also, you said about how everyone has their very specific role in the team. And it's like, okay, you do this, I do this, you do this. And like being able to accept your limitations and really hone in on this is what I'm great at, that facilitates more success over the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's more fun. You know what I mean? Like being involved with a team versus just like, hey, it's all about me. You know, that's that just doesn't fire me up.
Yeah, it's a lonely road when it's all about you. Like,
I would think so. Yeah. And really, like I tell Justin this all the time. Like, dude, I work for you, so like your input is, you know, in terms, obviously that's one of the jobs. It's not the only job I do. I'm I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I work at, and I'm very involved in CrossFit Fort Vancouver as an affiliate. But in terms of like Justin and my relationship, I work for him, and my job is so simple. It's like my job is to help him become the best athlete he can be. And like you said, it clarifies things. It makes my job and our relationship much simpler than if I'm like, yeah, I coach you, but I'm also have these other, I guess, motives in working with you that I want to grow my own, following or that type of thing. And for me, I couldn't care less about that type of stuff. Like, I'm literally there. My job is to help Justin. And that's been, it's a very rewarding process. It's one of those things. I told him this after the first year that we worked together, 2019. And he didn't qualify for the CrossFit Games. He actually got fourth place at the Granite Games that year, which was like one spot out of qualifying. And I told him right then and there, I was like, hey, if you don't qualify for the CrossFit Games next year, I want you to find a new coach, because I'm confident in the fact that like that's where you're heading. And if that doesn't happen, barring some unforeseen injury or something like that, if that doesn't happen, it's on me, right? Like, because I know
what
that
did he say to that?
He's like, dude, no way. Like, I want to keep working together. And he was like, in some level, it, in communicating it that way, it put some pressure on him, because he's like, oh shoot, like I don't want to have to go find a new coach if I don't qualify. But on the other side of that, I think the more important thing, and this wasn't necessarily communicated, is it just reiterated the belief that I have in his capability. Like I've known for a long time, like this guy is capable of a lot, and my job is to figure out like how good can he be. And so I think me communicating like, hey, if you don't qualify for CrossFit Games this year, go find a new coach. Maybe there was a little bit of pressure there, but more than that, it was like, there's a strong level of belief that like, yes, you are capable of this, and I'm invested in making that happen, or helping you make that happen. It's all about him. It's like, I'm invested in helping you make that happen. And that's something that we've always kind of stuck to. And even this year, fast forward to Justin winning the CrossFit Games, we didn't talk about winning the CrossFit Games all year. We talked about like, hey, how do we get better? How does the 2021 Justin, outperform the 2020 version? And if we focus on that, like, doesn't guarantee anything at the CrossFit Games, but I like our chances. It sets us up for an opportunity to have a pretty awesome year.
I've got so many follow-up questions from that. You picked apart like so many, or you pulled out so many points that aren't to help pick apart there. When did you first see his potential? When did you see him and go like, this dude's got something?
Oh man, can you hear me okay? I think my
I
headphones
can hear
might be.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
On the fritz. Okay, cool. Right on. When did I first see the potential in Justin? It was there before I ever started working with Justin. He qualified and competed at the West Regional when he was still in high school. So I mean, the potential, like it's always been there, and it's not something that one day I was just like, oh wow, this guy could be good. It was something that, and I take no credit in Justin's potential as an athlete, right? That's something that he's had, and I tell him too. I'm like, man, you could have done anything and won the CrossFit Games. I like to think that hopefully I've played some sort of positive role in that journey, but it's not because of me for sure. And then I think like when we first started working together, there was that potential, but that wasn't why we started working together. It was literally Justin's the attitude that he brought into the relationship of like, yeah, I want to get better. I got a couple of years to make this goal happen, and I want to put everything. I'm willing to work really hard at it. And I didn't make it easy for him, right? I was like, gave him some challenging, I guess, just even from the start of the relationship of like, hey, write me a letter to tell me who you are, what are your values, what are you about, what are your goals, who are you looking for in a coach, to kind of like start the process. And then when we first started working together, I was like, okay, cool, let's do this, but you're going to have to figure out a way to come to Vancouver, Washington, and train here in person. And those are obstacles that I was like, man, I don't know if he's if he wants to or is capable of making this.
Why did you give him that kind of gauntlet? Why do you say, okay, you're gonna, like, I want to see this?
So initially it was because I had stopped, I competed in CrossFit on a team for 10 years. And in 2018, even before 2018, I had decided that this is going to be my last year, just so that I can prioritize some other areas of my life, specifically my family and CrossFit Fort Vancouver. And so when he first reached out, I didn't have any interest in doing it at all. In fact, actually, it was our mutual friend who was like, he had reached out to me 3 times and was like, hey, I have this buddy, Justin, you guys should work together. And again, I wasn't interested. And so after he kind of kept calling me, he called me 3 times and was like, hey, you should do this. And eventually I was like, cool, I'll have a conversation with him. And then, I just was like, hey, write me a letter of who you are and this type of thing, thinking he's a college kid, he's probably not going to do that. And this isn't something that I'm probably going to move forward with. And it wasn't that I don't like coaching, obviously, but I'm not really interested in like, I've never been passionate about remote coaching, because I really like the human interaction of being with somebody in person. I don't think that I'm great at like online or remote coaching for that reason. So it was one of those things where eventually we had this conversation, said, hey, write this letter. I didn't think he would do it. I thought that would be the end of it. That would probably be our last conversation. He did it. He wrote a letter, sent it back the next day. And I was like, wow, this guy is not your average 21-year or 19-year-old, I think at the time. And at that point, I still wasn't super interested because my wife, Lauren, had supported and sacrificed so much over the years so that I could compete in CrossFit. But then I showed her the letter that he wrote and she read it and she was like, you should do it. And I was super surprised because I didn't think that was something that she was going to want me to do. Yeah, seriously. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, I think you'd love it and I think you'd be good at it. And so that's how we started together. And then, we were like, okay, let's use the early 2019 and the 2019 Open that year. I think it was in February, March or whatever. And like, hey, we'll use this as kind of like our dating and we'll try it out. We'll see where this goes. And if we're going to work together ongoing, like, you got to come out here to Vancouver and train in person. And I knew that all of those were a huge ask for a college kid. And turns out he delivered and he followed through on all of them.
Yeah. Like, what was in that letter that he wrote?
He talked about who he was, his background. He had grown up playing sports. He grew up as a wrestler. He'd gone to Boise State University to wrestle. And when he showed up on campus, they had cut the wrestling program. And so he was like, oh, well, I guess I'll put a little more focus into CrossFit, which was definitely a flip of the script because he had started doing CrossFit to help him in wrestling, right? And that was the reason he had been doing CrossFit. And then he started competing in CrossFit. Wrestling was kind of taken away from him when he went to college. So he was like, well, I guess by default, I'm going to focus on CrossFit. And then the main things that like really impressed me about him from the beginning was like, he talked about why he liked to compete, and he talked about the value of his family in that whole process, and they'd been with him, and supporting him from the very beginning, and how important family was to him and just in his life as a priority. He also wasn't like, you could tell his identity wasn't completely wrapped up in just being an athlete. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna continue going to college. I'm gonna get my degree, and in that process, I actually have the freedom and flexibility in my life to be able to dedicate a lot of time and effort into training while still at the same time being a student.
Yeah. Why is it important to you that he had interest outside CrossFit?
I really like the fact that he's from the very beginning, he's very self-aware, and he's not just like, oh, I think I'm the best CrossFitter and I'm gonna go win the CrossFit Games, right?
I've met a few people like that.
Yeah, and not to say that's not a great attitude to have, like that works for some people, but for Justin, I like the fact that he's like, I don't know what's going to happen, but in the next couple of years, I'm willing to work as hard as I can to make this goal of being a CrossFit athlete. And even then, he felt like he really never considered being a CrossFit athlete as like a career, until after he won the Filthy 150 semifinal or sanctional in Ireland. So it wasn't like his life was defined just by CrossFit. He was still a student, a member of his family that he loved and values so much, that it was like, man, this guy just, he's humble, and he's got a great demeanor, a level of self-awareness, and he's a person that, like, you know what, I was fortunate enough to compete in CrossFit for a long time. Over the course of the 10 years that we went to the CrossFit Games, I had 25 different teammates that represented CrossFit Fort Vancouver, from our, like, literally true affiliate team, people from our team, like from our gym, coming up and competing and representing our affiliate at the CrossFit Games. And we had some good teams, and we had some teams that, like, we were happy to make it to the games. But I felt like through all those experiences, like, yeah, I think I have something to offer where I can actually provide some value that can help Justin. And it's something that I'm willing and excited to pursue.
Yeah, you mentioned the Filthy 150 there, and I heard you say in an interview, or watched you in a video or something, say something like, when he qualified or when he made it to the next stage, his mindset shifted to something like, I can do this, or I belong here. Something that, yeah, I can do this, I belong here, as my note. Can you talk me through how you saw that shift? Like, did you see it in his language? Did you see it in his body language? Did you see it in his attitude, the way he behaved?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's still a work in progress for Justin.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's crazy to say because he just won the CrossFit Games, but here he is. He started doing CrossFit in 7th grade, and so he grew up, watching the Matt Frasers and the Rich Fronings and the Pat Belliners and these type of guys, legends in the sport. He watched them, and if you can remember what it felt like to, I don't know, like for you, but when I was a kid watching somebody like Michael Jordan play basketball, or certain athletes that you just, you see them at the peak of their sport, and kind of that the pinnacle of athletic performance. They kind of are like, I don't know, childhood superheroes. And Justin, in a relatively short period of time, went from that kind of environment into, like, all of a sudden he's in the lane next to them, competing next to his childhood heroes. And so it's easy to see why at the beginning that could be very intimidating. And he often, especially early on, but this is one thing I love about him, he's so humble. He often sells his own capabilities short. And so the people around him, specifically as coaches, are like, we see that, like, no, you have it, you belong, you can compete at the same level of these guys. But these are the same guys that he's been looking up to for years. And so you can talk about that all you want, but until you're out there, in the competition arena, competing next to those guys and realizing, like, oh no, like, I'm doing the same thing they're doing, and it turns out I'm not only keeping up, I'm holding my own, right? To really, like, build that self-confidence to be like, yeah, I can do this. And even to this day, Justin didn't go into the CrossFit Games being like, oh yeah, this is mine to lose, or I'm going to win the CrossFit Games. He just focused on what he was the whole time, which is like, hey, I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can. I'm not going to worry about anybody else and what they're doing. But I think it is beneficial for him to know, and the more he competes, the more it builds his confidence to know that, like, my best is enough, right? My best is enough. And so going into competition, you have all these question marks like, can I do it? Can I compete at the level that I want to? Can I, hang with people on these certain workouts? And especially because the nature of Justin's training is we work on his weaknesses a lot. So when he's training, he doesn't necessarily feel that fit, right? He feels sometimes like, shoot, I'm working on the stuff that I'm not as good at. I'm working on it often. So I don't always have that much confidence, but then you go out there and know that like, no matter what, if he gets to the finish mats in any competition with anybody on the planet, if he gets to that finish mat and he knows like, yep, that was my best effort, it'll be enough, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah. Like, I think it's so important that you touched on that kind of sense of belonging. And it is an ongoing battle, especially when you are in an environment that's unusual to you, or it's something you've looked at for such a long time. Are these conversations that you're having with them, are you talking about these kind of things as well as everything else that you do?
Yeah. And that's one of the huge blessings of like, we live together when he's here in Vancouver. And it's not a year-round thing. Like he's back in Boise. He's finished up his last semester of college right now. But when he's here, like, training is his job and he's here for that purpose. But like he sits down and, has family dinner with my wife and kids, and we talk and we just hang out. And then, it gives us a great opportunity to just visit about training and about, how things are going and how things went today. What are we up to tomorrow? What's on your mind? How are you feeling? What's your body feel like? Where's your head at? That type of stuff. And so we get to have those conversations quite a bit. And it's one thing that, man, I'm super thankful for that, that immediate feedback that we get to have when he's here in town.
Yeah. Something I hear you doing the whole time, I don't know whether you're consciously doing it or not, but you're essentially reinforcing you are good enough. Like you've said it a few times throughout the conversation, like you are good enough, you can do this. Like I see your potential. And even by throwing down that gauntlet initially of like, write me a letter and prove how good you are. And you're basically saying, yeah, you are good enough. You are good enough to do this the whole time. And you're just reinforcing that. And it takes a lot of skill to do that subtly without appearing kind of cliche, or like you're attending a Tony Robbins like a seminar or something like that. It's like you really sincerely meaning it, like, yeah, you can do this. So it's really cool to see, and it shows how you've helped coach him on a personal level as well as a fitness level, which is awesome to do. How are you doing for time, by the way?
You know what, I just sent a message, so I'm all right. Yeah.
Okay, sweet, cool. Thanks,
right.
man.
So yeah, if you want to keep it rolling, we can. I'm not I'm not in a time crunch, so
right,
we're good.
I appreciate it, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a few stories about his mental toughness, or his when you've seen his like what I'd describe as champions mindset in display?
A few of the moments.
Yeah, or it's stories or moments.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back at this year's CrossFit Games, there's 15 events. I would say his performance, his execution on 11 out of those 15 events was almost as flawless as it could be. Like I don't know if there's ever such thing as perfect execution in any sport, but like I think he competed. You want your performance in competition to reflect, the highest level of what you're capable of, right? And it's actually, I don't want to say it's a rare thing, but it's unique. When it happens, you really have to appreciate it and embrace it, because that's not always the case in competition. If you talk to many athletes, and they look back on their event, what's the first thing they say? Oh, if I could have done that differently. Oh, I should have done this, if only that, right? And so to be able to look back at a competition and say that, like, man, 11 out of those 15 events really went about as well as they could. Like, that is a testament to the mindset that he takes into every single event. And just the fact that, like, winners win. Winners find a way to win. And that might not mean, that they win every event. And it might not even mean that they win the CrossFit Games. But what I mean by that is, like, winners, champions find a way to perform at the highest level possible that they can in each moment that they're out there. And there's lots of examples of, like, responding to that. For Justin, I think about the sprint event. It was like a 550-yard sprint at the games. And he kind of got, like, boxed out right at the start line. And then he ended up like behind. Well, I'm gonna take these. Can you still hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, yeah.
He ended up just like behind a bunch of people right out of the gate, and it's only 550 yards. So, you know, he's basically in like second class place in his heat right at the beginning. And his first, you know, like anybody, the first thing that came into his mind was like, oh shoot, I'm gonna lose this race. I'm last in my heat. There's 4 other heats, and this could be a really bad finish for me, right? And he's like swerving around trying to find, you know, some real estate to make up some ground, and that's not happening. And then he quickly, and this is something that he's learned over time, he quickly shifted that, oh shoot, poor me, I'm a victim of my circumstance or whatever. He quickly shifted to that, to be like, doesn't matter, nothing else matters. I'm going to beat every person I can right now in this heat. So I'm going to try to pass one person, right? And then I'm going to try to find my way around to pass another person. And it turned out that he finished 11th in that event overall. And was that his best finish? Absolutely not. Was he capable of finishing a little bit better? I believe that he was, but I consider that one of the biggest wins of the weekend because, or of the week, I should say, because, you know, the possibility for him to feel sorry for himself, or, you know, throw in the towel or kind of phone it in because of, you know, some bad, whatever you want to call it, bad luck or bad circumstance at the beginning. I would say that's what many of us would have done had we been in his shoes at the time. But when those thoughts within, you know, that event was only a minute 15. So those thoughts crept into his head probably in the first 15 seconds. And when he, you know, out there in the CrossFit Games had the awareness to realize those thoughts were happening and to just, you know, get them out of his head and focus on, hey, what action can I take right now to make the most of the opportunity that I'm in? And by the way, I only have, you know, 45 seconds left to do it. And for him to actually do that in the time, like that's like I said, that's championship-esque. That's what winners do. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Matt Fitzgerald in his book, The Comeback Quotient, he's also a guest that we've had on the show. He talks about that ability to pivot, like accepting and embracing and then doing something about reality or addressing reality is like this kind of cycle that we have to go through. It's almost like the OODA loop that fighter pilots talk about, like observe, orientate, decide, act. And the quicker you go through that loop, the quicker you can like adapt to the situation and overcome, or in the sense of fighter pilots, the quicker you can win the dogfight. Is this something that you're like actively training in? Are there ways that you kind of throw in these curveballs, or is it something that he's learned? I know he's wrestled, but is it something that you're doing it together?
I would say a combination. Like I definitely think a lot of the lessons that he learned from wrestling are super beneficial for him in CrossFit, right? Like, you know, he'll talk about his first year wrestling, like he basically lost every match and realized like, hey, if somebody else beats me, like good job. If somebody else beats me because I didn't perform at the level that I'm capable of, that's on me, right? So, you know, focusing on that, you know, it's definitely something that is talked about all the time, but focus on what things are within the scope of your own control versus what is not. Those are some things that I think he's learned a lot over the years. But also conversations that we have kind of like this fairly regularly of like, just being honest with each other. And for me as a coach to just be honest with him, you know, even in training and in competition, when it's like, okay, you know, this is something that went well, but here's a way that could be better. Here's an opportunity to improve. And he's like probably the most coachable person I've ever been around, because he doesn't get like, emotionally, I don't know what the right word would be, emotionally offended by, I don't want to say being called out, but by being corrected or coached. And he takes it in stride and he's like, thank you. Like, cool. And, you know, I think about even literally last year, in 2020, we were driving back from the games and like, we're always looking for opportunities. Like if I'm being honest about, hey, I want you to be as good as you can be, and I want to help you do that, then you don't know when those opportunities are going to come. And we were leaving the 2020 CrossFit Games, and he happened to be driving at the time, and somebody cut him off in traffic. And you know, first reaction is like, you're pissed, like, oh man, what the heck? You know, some people might flip him off or do something. And you know, for me, it's like, shoot, life's too short for that. And you just got third place at the CrossFit Games.
and you're letting some stranger steal your joy, and all of a sudden you're mad at them, and that doesn't do anything for them. They don't even know you're mad at them. It's just you being mad. Like we don't want to let somebody do that, right? And that maybe that's a bad example. I don't know, but examples like that are extremely worthwhile in competition, in training, in like just, hey, this is the circumstances that I'm in. That guy cut me off. I wish he didn't do that, but it's all good. It's not gonna affect my mindset or the amount of joy or just the experience that I'm having, because I know who I am and what I'm about, and somebody cut me off in traffic can't take that away from me, right? Somebody swerving in front of me in a sprint at the games, maybe it's not ideal, but it's not going to change the fact that I'm going to try to beat every other person that I possibly can and score as many points in this event as I can, because I know that's going to contribute to the overall outcome at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's incredible, because I think the way that we do the best we possibly can, the way we fulfill our potential, is essentially by seeing the world as truthfully as it actually is, and seeing it without this kind of emotional lens, or not without the emotional lens, seeing emotion for what it is, which is just another element of experience. Like, you don't want to become like a automaton and just like not be able to experience emotion, because
Right.
it's useful. But like what you're teaching him to do there, and what the conversations you're having is basically like, oh, this is the situation. This is what, like, this is how he reacts in those moments is how you react when it really counts, when you're in those kind of events at the games or life events outside of that. That gives you the opportunity to be in control.
Yeah. And that's I think that's, especially for like this audience, and also for like, 99% of the people that I coach or interact with personally, like those lessons are not unique to a CrossFit Games championship level athlete. Those are like, those are everyday kind of life just approaches that I think have value for all of us, right? Because we all have situations literally every day where things annoy us or frustrate us or this or that, and it's like, okay, well, those things happen, they're part of life, but how do I respond to it, right? And I think that's one area that I think CrossFit is amazing at developing is our own I guess just kind of personal outlook in situations, in addition to the obvious results that are physical.
Yeah, doing difficult things together has this incredible ability to not only bond human beings, but also like encourage you to find your next level or to address your limitations. So yeah, the CrossFit definitely has that ability to do that. And if it transfers over, like what you're really doing, there's this model of development, right, called Piagetian development, where this guy Piaget was like, okay, if babies learn by reaching out their arm, it has a small effect on the world. And then they realize that, oh, if I do this, I achieve this goal. Maybe I move around my toy or something like that. And then all this builds into like bigger and bigger and bigger goals. And part of CrossFit is doing these things better and becoming a better like kind of athlete or weightlifter. And it all feeds into like, oh, I'm trying to become a better person. Like at the top of the hierarchy is like, I'm trying to be a better person. And this filters down to everything else that I do at a smaller level. It seems like you guys are doing that.
No, I couldn't agree more. Like it all builds toward becoming a better person, because I assume you've probably experienced this, and I know I have, and anybody that's been doing CrossFit for a decade or more probably is in the same boat. And maybe it doesn't even take that long in some scenarios, but it's like, okay, I competed in CrossFit for a long time. When I go into the gym, I'm actually not trying to necessarily set PRs, right? Because I know that right now I work out an hour a day with whatever class that it makes sense for my schedule to jump into. And when I'm doing that, I understand that I'm probably not going to surpass the results that I had when I was training, 2-3 sessions a day and built my life around competing, right? And I am 1000% okay with that, because the value for me in going in and doing a class workout with, my friends and family every day is like, I'm a better person because of it, right? I break a sweat, have a great time. Don't get me wrong, I go into the pain cave. I just might not be doing Fran in 2 minutes or whatever. And I really value the role that CrossFit or fitness plays in my life, because like I said, I'm more fun to be around. I'm more patient. I think more clearly. I have better balance. And so that's the value that fitness has in my life at this point. It's not just about performance. Performance is great, and chasing performance is definitely something that's worthwhile and has value. But at the end of the day, we all at some point are not going to continue to improve our performance. And I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And I'm not saying that to be negative or to, not knock people down from their goals. But at the same time, like, there has to be more to it than just performance.
Yeah, like I suppose that's the mental health versus mental fitness trade-off. It's like, if you're doing it just for mental fitness, it's like maybe it pays off in a couple of years to just destroy everything that you hold sacred, all your relationships, to burn every bridge, and just, okay, I'm gonna, like, maybe that will get you to the podium, maybe that will get you to your next level, maybe that, even business sense, maybe that will get you to your promotion or whatever. But like, when that's finished, where does that leave you as a human, as a kind of an emotional human being? Like, what does that make you at the end of the day?
Yeah. Well, I think a great example of that is Matt Fraser. Like, for years, he was very singularly focused on, being the fittest man on the planet. And nobody has ever done it better than him. And, his circle that helped him with that is very close, and still to this day is. But at this point, he's in a similar boat of like, okay, I did that. That was a part of my life that was amazing. I'm glad I got to do it. But now how can I use that to like share and give back and develop in other areas of my life that I had to put on hold while I was singularly focused on becoming the fittest on earth. And man, I really appreciate the example that he sets in that, how he approached things. Cause I think that it's easy to kind of take ourselves too seriously, whether that's in fitness or in our job or whatever it is. But having life balance is that piece that, like, CrossFit or just fitness in general is so beneficial in maintaining and developing our own mental health.
Yeah, it seems like he was very conscious in the way he went, okay, right, I'm putting the business side of things, I'm putting like maybe friendships and partying and all the kind of stuff that goes along with being a human being, I'm putting that to one side, but I'm going to come back to it at some point. I'm going to explore these other avenues, as opposed to, I can't have any of that and I'm just going to chuck it away and never come back to it. It seems like he's really conscious about that. You said something about Matt Fraser, which, go on, sorry, you're about to say something.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think he was just very intentional about like, okay, that other stuff is important to me. And I'll pursue those things when the time is right.
Yeah. Still managed to explore a lot of coffee though, I think, in this time. Like, he's a coffee connoisseur, right?
Yeah. I think maybe that's performance related.
Yeah. If there's any PEDs, I think it's caffeine related.
Yeah, exactly.
You said about Matt Fraser, like, when he was competing, no one else stood a chance. Why was that? Like, I think you said that when you and Justin were with him on a 4-day camp.
I think that's one of those things where, like, everybody likes to say they work hard, but getting a glimpse of like what Matt's day-to-day looked like, it was like, no, this guy not only is outworking people, he's doing it in such an intelligent way that, like, he has that combination of, whatever you want to call it, God-given ability with being at the right place at the right time, with being willing to work really hard, with just having, like, I don't think there's anybody in the space that has a more intelligent approach to training and competing than Matt. And so that combination is just like, and I mean, the guy also has this experience level where he knows himself better than anybody else knows themselves. He's competed for this long. It's like, it's easy to see why he was so successful year after year.
Yeah. Yeah, you get this feeling from watching him as well. Like, I've never interacted with him personally, but like, you get this feeling and you can kind of pick it up when you see it. It's like something that in the back of your mind, like the human part goes, oh, okay, I recognize that. That's something that I need to aim at. That's something that's exemplifying like a great human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you look at Tia, what she's doing now. And it's like, dude, like, I don't know what all the factors are as to why she is the person and the athlete that she is, but man, I don't think anybody watching the games was like doubting the fact that Tia was capable of winning the CrossFit Games this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I was desperately trying to find betting services that would take on bets for Tia winning. Right. Like, that's where my money's going.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, good luck getting much payout there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You'd have to put my life savings on it and get like $10.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Um, so there are two people that I'd love to like pick apart those stories and like and get them on the show at some point. Like that'd be fascinating just to go, okay, like how did you become that person? Like what was your experience? I think that'd be a really cool conversation. Um, Couple more questions, then I'll let you get on with your day. Um, so I've also heard of you. Heard you talking about this kind of 3-day focus. Like you're kind of really only focused on like, okay, 3 days of programming at a time or 3 days at the time, just to see what's like. And also you said something like, oh, okay, what can we get better at today? Like, what's the focus for today? How can I improve today? And how are you balancing that kind of long-term focus with the kind of immediate 3 days?
That's a great question. The best thing for balancing the long-term focus is competition, because it gives us like very very real and immediate, pertinent, relevant feedback right out of the gate. Like, we look at all of Justin's competition events and it's like, okay, there's what can we do, so that in training you're more prepared to compete next time, in this example of events, and not just the ones that he's competing in, but there are other things that didn't come up that we know he has room to improve. So I would say the competitions help us to build kind of the more big picture plan. What is it, from him getting first at the 2021 CrossFit Games, what are we going to do in the next, we have the season right now broken down into like, he had a little mini off season, and then he's got basically a couple months and he'll compete in Rogue, and then he'll have another off season, and then we'll start to kind of ramp things back up, to prepare for like August of next year. Now, obviously that doesn't mean he's overlooking the open or quarterfinals or semifinals, but again, like the goal is for him to continue to improve daily so that, in July, August next year, he's at his peak fitness, the fittest he's ever been again. And then the day-to-day stuff is like, okay, we're not just programming a bunch of workouts for him to do for the sake of doing them. Like every piece has an intent. Every piece has a reason for why we're doing it. And it's important that he knows that. So he's not just like showing up to work out and going through the motions. He's like, no, this is why I'm doing this piece, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And sometimes that means that, yeah, he's suffering and just going into the pain cave and working as hard as he can. Other times it's like, yeah, no, we're working on the skill or the technique of those types of things. And some of that is maybe pre-planned as far as like, hey, what is this exact intent? And then some of that is like, if, when we're together and I can be there to watch a session, it's like, okay, that's how this interval or this round went. On this next one, I want you to focus on this, or that type of thing. So yeah, there is that big picture element of like, how do we plan for a whole season? But then the day-to-day of like, okay, let's make sure that every piece that you're doing has an intent, and you understand what that is, and you go out and execute on it.
That's really cool to hear. And also relating the long-term vision to the in the moment, this is why you're doing it, is so important. It's such a big step that so many people miss out when they begin struggling. It's just like they either get overwhelmed by now or overwhelmed by the future, and they don't connect the two things together.
Yeah. I don't know where I heard this, but I remember, and I think it's kind of, you said you have a military background, so you can probably relate, but when people throw in the towel on something like a marathon or something that just seems overwhelming, which can be related to, say, a CrossFit Games season, it's like, it's never like that next step. You're like, oh, I can't take one more step. It's like, the fear of all the other steps that are going to come after that, mm-hmm. and those types of things. So, in the CrossFit Games season, it's absolutely grueling, right? It's challenging. In the day-to-day, there's lots of times where you're questioning like, man, why am I doing this? And is it working? And that type of thing. So the more specific we can make each of the pieces that he's training for, the more intentional we can be with that, the easier it is for him to get his mind around like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. This is important. This has value. Even though I might not feel like progressing in my fitness, that's part of the process. And when you're in the tunnel, sometimes it's hard to like, step back and have that perspective and see it.
Yeah, like those lows, those emotional like roller coaster moments, those depths are inevitable whenever you're doing something challenging, whenever you're doing something difficult. Like that is part of the burden you take on. Like, how are you as a coach dealing with those moments when they do come up?
When he's having those moments, oh man, That's something that I think it depends. That's the like non-committal answer. It depends. No, it really does. And I'll think about like, let's say a month out from this year's CrossFit Games, and he was, he's in that, you know, your body doesn't feel great when you're at that point because you're just doing a lot. You're not training with that kind of volume leading up, or the whole year that you are leading up to the games, because the games is as much about being able to recover from 15 events as it is being fit. And so there's a pretty high training volume at that point. And like my job at that point is just to give him as much confidence as I possibly can. Right. And that doesn't mean like lie to him and tell him, oh, you're amazing and that was great, if that wasn't the case. But like the confidence of like, yeah, I get it. That doesn't, you're sore. You don't feel like that was your best performance, but like, this is why we're doing this. And it's part of the process. Once we take some time off and recover and taper a little bit leading up to the games, you'll be glad you did all of this stuff. Right. And so really just trying to continue to get him to buy into the fact that like he can do what we know he can do, what he's capable of.
Yeah. Reminding him of the big picture.
Yeah. Reminding him of the big picture. And then the other thing is, accountability. Like if there is times where like, somebody's attitude isn't what it should be, or if there's an excuse or something like that. And that's pretty rare for Justin. Like that doesn't happen a lot, but just being accountable or being honest to have like, that's part of my job, is to like, have this outside perspective of like, no, this is like something that you were bringing that can be better. And let's make sure that, tomorrow it is. So there's that balance, but like at the end of the day, he knows that like, I want him to, to be as successful as he can be as an athlete. And I have confidence that he's capable of so much. And I'm also not gonna like sugarcoat it. If I see something, I'm gonna say something. And that's just kind of the relationship that we have, a trust for one another that I think takes time to develop.
Awesome. So final question, just to wrap things up. I'm interested in mental health in all kinds of areas. What kind of things do you do on a kind of frequent basis, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly or even annually? Do you do that kind of, oh, this puts me in the right headspace?
For me personally?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think there's probably a number of things that I do that maybe aren't even like conscious decisions for my mental health, but a couple that are probably the most prominent for me. Number one is like, I am a man of faith. Like my Christian faith and belief in God is like super central to who I am as a person. And I believe that my purpose on the earth is to basically glorify God and bless others. And I've found, my job as a CrossFit coach, to be the best way to do that with the gifts that I've been given. And so just staying true to who I am, that means I do practice my faith through like, not always daily, but very consistent reading or spiritual growth, because I think that's a big part of things for me. And then the other way that I express that, the other two ways that I express that is just making sure that I'm present with my family, being a dad, being a husband, and making sure that I'm contributing in that area of my life for the people that are most important, that I love the most and are counting on me. And then I love getting outside and like just being in nature. And so, challenging myself physically. I enjoy trail running. I enjoy, like I said, just being outside and doing things, whether it can be solo. Usually it's with other people, because I think no matter what we do, like fitness or, our job, our career, faith, whatever you fill in the blank, it's always better done in community, or in my mind as part of a team. And so I always enjoy that. But yeah, between my faith, my family, and fitness, especially outside in nature, those are kind of things that I think really fill me up and allow me to have the life balance that makes me passionate about doing the things that I'm doing, and not kind of getting burnt out or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw quite a few photos of you wielding ice axes and crampons. So that's out in those Cascades or similar.
Yeah, you're a climber too, or a skier, right?
Yeah, I do some ski mountaineering and like spend time in the
Mountaineering.
mountains. Yeah, it's
Dude,
the one.
I'm just a novice, man. I could learn a lot from you, I'm sure.
Well, I've made a lot of mistakes. Made a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I'm out in BC in February. So if I'm around, I'll make sure to drop into Fort Vancouver if I can get over the border.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the border will be like at that time, but if there's any way you could,
I'll ski across.
yeah, ski across. Oh, that would be awesome, man. I would love it. You'd definitely be welcome at our gym anytime. And if honestly, mindset coaching is something that I think, man, when I say we, I'm saying as like the CrossFit affiliate community could, there's a huge opportunity for us to improve people's lives by talking about this stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know what your day-to-day looks like, but if you're ever in the area and you want to just like, get some people together and talk about some of that stuff, we'd love to have you at our gym.
Yeah,
anytime.
I'd love to, man. I'd love to. Yeah, I might send you a message about that because it's in the long-term vision. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get there then. All right, Adam, thank you so much for your time today.
Cool. Tom, thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you.